gentle autumn rain. When you awaken in the morning's hush, I am the swift, uplifting rush of quiet birds in circled flight. I am the soft stars that shine at night. Do not stand at my grave and cry. I am not there. I did not die. Okay, so spread his ashes now, and we're gonna do it right down here.
This thing on the chair.
When I come to the end of the road and the sun has set for me, I want no rights in a gloom-filled room. Why cry for a soul set free? Miss me a little, but not for long, and not with your head bowed low. Remember the love we once shared. Miss me, but let me go. For this is a journey we all must take, and each must go alone. It's all a part of the Master's plan, a step on the road to home. When you're lonely and sick of heart, go to the friends we know and bury your sorrows in doing good deeds. Miss me, but let me go. Feel no guilt in laughter, he knows how much you care. Feel no sorrow in a smile that he's not there to share. You cannot grieve forever, he would not want you to. He'd hope that you would carry on the way you always do. So talk about the good times and the ways you showed you cared. The days you spent together, all the happiness that you shared. Let the memories surround you. A word someone may say will suddenly recapture a time, an hour, a day that brings him back as clearly as though he were still here and fills you with the feelings that he is always near. For if you keep those memories, you will never be apart, and he will live forever locked safe within your heart. Life is one big journey, a collection of happy moments worth cheering about. Today is a day for celebration as we remember Hans's life, a full life filled with happy moments worthy of a second cheer. Cheer for the ways he made you feel special and important. Celebrate his love. Echo his tenacity and adventurous spirit in the way you live your life. Love every moment of life and share that love with others. Affect change in the world. Make the world a better place because you are here. Be brave, loyal, and caring. Radiate happiness and joy in everything you do so that it may spread. Thank Hans for the memories and years of friendship he gave to you. Embark on your own epic journey, as he did so many times over the years. Do all of this as a tribute to the impression he left on you. Be like Hans. This is no time to mourn. He would not want us all sad and crying as we talk about his life. This is the time to celebrate, to dance, sing, and eat, and be happy. And let's be glad we got to be a part of his life, and he got to be a part of ours. Let's be thankful for the time we had and the memories we carried. Let's be excited about our futures and how he played a hand in them. A celebration is a party, a major affair that can last hours, days, weeks, or even months. And what better place to celebrate than a granny? Hans's life should be a celebration we carry on forever. Reach into your heart and soul and find our friend and bring him out. Rejoice alongside you, dance like he would dance, sing like he would sing, and eat like he would eat. And I invite you now to come forward and share your
sit.
Ralph, you can play a song really quick.
Ralph.
He can't hear you.
Ralph. Well, those are so many nice.
She's gonna play a song really quick.
Oh,
Oh, it's off.
let me borrow it one more time, Ralph. We'll play this song and then I'll hand it back to you. Sorry about that. Out of order. I don't think it's gonna do it. You go ahead, Ralph. I don't
No, here,
I
Susan,
don't
we
think
can.
it's
You
next.
can.
You wanna try?
Is it played? Is it? It's not. The song's on your phone.
Yeah.
Just play it on your phone. Just start saying it.
It's just that one right there. So you just switch it to speaker and then you just talk into it.
Yeah, you're good.
Push this.
No,
Nope,
it's just
you
on.
talk into it. Yep.
Hello?
There you go.
Okay. Well, that was a lot of fine thoughts that I think we all share. And closer? Okay. The OC Senior did me a favor this morning and reminded me that there are really no words to express all that you'd want to say and feel. And so I'm just going to say a few things. First, I want to thank OC and his parents for their hospitality and for what they meant in Hans's life. And this is such a wonderful place to celebrate it. We have had 3 celebrations, as you may know. First, in Empire, where he lived, in the church where he was, which was the center of the powder addiction operation, and the walls were covered with his photographs of skiing. It was Hans's spot. And secondly, in Ann Arbor, in the town that he grew up in, and now in a place that epitomizes the part of the world that meant the most to him. At the memorial, some of you were at in Empire. We played a song from a dear friend of mine who's a songwriter and who lived with Hans and I for several years when Hans was about 5. And the song was Someone's Passing Over. And we played it, and in Ann Arbor he performed it live. But after Empire, I went and talked to him about the meaning of it, and he explained to me that you're thinking of, in the context of memorial, someone passing over, is that they're leaving us. It's whether it's to a hopeful place or not. It's at least for the time being leaving, and our sense of absence. And Dick told me that actually that was not what he was thinking when he wrote the song. He wrote it after a very dear friend of his died, and his thought was he had this impression of him passing over. It's sort of when you think of him passing through your consciousness and being able to reach out and touch that. And I was thinking putting a sticker, and I didn't, but Hans lives in all of us that have responded so much to all that he was. And one of the things that occurred to me today was that he really would have no idea of the sort of memorials that would be held for him in Empire. He was very humble, had a lower sensitive self-esteem, I think, than all of the people that knew him. But there was a huge memorial in Empire, and again in Ann Arbor, and now here, and it's so appropriate. And I think that we want to share stories of him, so I thought I'd just share one story, and it's a story that I just heard. I'd like to hear, from people as to their experiences and their impressions. So many people say, well, I thought of him as a best friend, but everybody did. And, everybody would say, well, how did you meet him? Well, he came up with a six-pack, said, I got a six-pack, nobody to share with. My name is Hans. And it was like 3 or 4 times it was the same story. And they were friends for the rest of their lives. So we so the story that I just heard was he had he was just a naturally fast runner from the time he was a youngster, and he was on the track team. And this is a story I'd never heard, actually. And when he was in high school, there was sort of a 2-mile relay team that was sort of thrown together. The 4 fastest half-milers that the coach could get together. And the person who spoke actually is the son of a friend of mine. And he said, but Hans became the soul of the group, and he sort of said, hey, we're a unit, and made them feel close and special. And they went to the district meet, and they qualified for the state meet just by the skin of their teeth. So when they got to the state meet, they thought, well, okay, the expectation is we're going to come in last. Nobody hoped for much, but they said, hey, let's give it our best. Let's go for it. Let's go. And Hans is saying, yeah, come on. He could rant and be enthusiastic about everything. He got them going. Let's everybody go for their best. So they put their first runner out as the fastest member of the group. And he came in the fastest time he had ever run and was in second place. The next one went out, ran the fastest time he had ever run in his life. They were still hanging in. Hans was next, and the person who spoke was the last one. Everyone ran the fastest time they had ever had in a half mile. They came in third. So the lasting memory is that this continued to mean a lot. And what happened was one of the members of the team happened to live in Denver, and suddenly was listening to the morning news one day, and this news came out, and he couldn't believe it. What? Huh? It just was. They hadn't really stayed in touch. All the 4 members hadn't stayed in touch, but he called the others, and they've sort of. And memory as Hans has brought them all back together again, and that's the people that have responded to him, that he meant a lot to, are people that naturally have something in common. We are, in a sense, a community. And, he passed every time you think he's passing through. For me, it's easy. I've been thinking, especially as I've been back home, he's as much in my life, and for most of us, day to day, as he ever was. You know, when January comes around and I'd be spending the month skiing with him, it's going to be a little harder. I think of you every day and how hard it has to be to live in the space that you were spending with him day to day. Um, and Joanne, who was lost so many family members in such a short period of time, and you know, I realize how blessed we are to have all of the family that he was so much part of continuing. So you know, come and share your stories, and let Hans continue to live in your lives, and appreciate who he was. It's so much more important that he did live and he in all that he had than it was cut short, yes, and he's not here now, yes, but uh, but he was here, and he's still here in us, and I was.
I guess I'll jump on this. Hi, my name's Mojo. I'm blessed. I feel like I'm with family. I'm blessed because I feel like I'm with family. And we're all related through this one incredible person. God, you could talk about Hans and the stories and everything. I'm going to keep it short because there's a lot of people here. There's one thing I ask. I'm going to leave this wind chime. There's one hanging in front of Hans's cabin. So this will be hung up over here. I encourage you guys every time you come to remember Hans, pick up a rock. Pick up a rock. Leave your presence there. Makes that beautiful little remembrance. And who knows? There will always be the chimes here. There's chimes in Empire. He brought music to a lot of our lives in a certain way. I miss him. We have a new charge. We're all storytellers now. We got to keep this memory of Hans going, and I think this is a hell of a place. I'm blessed. Thank you for the invitation. Love you guys.
I am probably the very last person anybody here would expect to come up and say anything about Hans, because I only knew him from the 2 weekends I had up here, 2017 and 2018, which is why I think it's so important for me to come up here and say something, because while I only knew him a short amount of time, he was so memorable. I always think of myself as being really socially awkward and easily forgettable, but he remembered me, and he always made me feel so comfortable and at ease. He had a really gentle, calm presence about him. And I told my sister-in-law yesterday, I said, I didn't know him very well. I feel like I don't have a right to miss him as much as I do. That's such a testament to him, that he left such a small footprint on my heart. But it was really quite deep, and I will always remember Hans.
Thank you guys all so much for coming and sharing this moment, celebrating Hans, Susan, Wolf, Linda, Joanne, Mojo, and everybody. I want to tell a funny story because I blubbered my way through the Empire one. I thought maybe if I told a funny story, it wouldn't be such a mess. So, a lot of our friends, the group that is here and the new Hans, originally, I knew him for a bit from work. And then there was a Halloween party. And it was a concert. And Hans and I shared a love of wearing ridiculous outfits. And he said, well, it's Halloween, right? I said, yeah. He said, well, we're going to dress up. I said, well, I am. And we were at our Kari Nights little place in Denver, and everybody was there, and Hans was a little bit late, sort of somewhat stereotypically. And I see him rolling down the sidewalk, and he'd basically taken, like, balloons, blown them up, spray painted them black or something. I don't know how he did that. And basically made himself into a spider. But I mean, he really took it to the next level. Like, he painted his face silver. I mean, it was full on. And he rolled, and nobody knew who he was. And they're like, "What is happening?" I was like, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Hans." And that I had people for weeks after that were like, "But the guy in the spiders, like, who was that guy?" And I know a lot of people that were at that show remember that as the time they first met him. And I was sharing that story with Susan, and I think it warmed my heart. You said he'd kept that costume. He was so proud of it. Afterward, like, I found a photo of him before where it looks great, and then I found one later when we were back at our house, and like some of the balloons were popped, and the face paint was all running. Yeah, that's about right. So, Lindsay, that was so beautiful, and I think that's how I would end and just say that the thing that surprised me most about Hans was I didn't fully understand just what a massive impact he had on everyone. And Susan has been phenomenal in helping me understand that the way that we honor Hans is we realize the depths of those relationships, and we say it every day, and we enjoy it every day because it's precious and it can go away. And that's, I think, hopefully what Hans would want us to do.
Hello, my name is Ryan Martinez, and I only knew Hans from this place. This will be my fourth, so I've known him for the past 2 years, and I'm gonna miss going down to this spot that we found called the Vastness, It's remarkable when there's no clouds in the sky and it's like completely dark out. You go down and there's this particular spot that makes it look like you're in a snow globe because of the way the contours of the landscape go, and you're walking and it's just like whatever, and then you hit this spot and all of a sudden this effect happens and your jaw drops and you're like, whoa. And it's gonna be a real bummer not to be down there this year and have him enjoying that with me.
My name is Matt Gill, and I only knew Hans via OC and Freddy's, obviously. One thing that was truly remarkable is that when he passed, none of us knew his age. He had like a vitality inside him. It was truly timeless. And it was really incredible. Really nice.
Hadn't seen her. You know, I tell a little story that my son O.C. was probably unable to tell. When he was trying to collect his wits after this insane event took our friend from us, he told us a story that one day he was checking his phone and there was a voice recording on it. And Hans' voice came on and said, "Hi, Os. I'm 25 miles into a 125-mile walk. It's raining. I just thought I'd sit down and tell you how much I feel for you." And he proceeded to say things that guys can say to each other in honest tones, you know, not embellished. And I could tell, as I could tell just now in my son, what an incredibly moving and very simple and genuine act that was, of just how often do we contact somebody that we really felt for or felt something and we just never get around to it. So I remember Hans for that. And when I was talking to Rolf yesterday, and it's a part of my life because of the way I am, I was thought back to that recording and talking to Rolf, and I remembered one of my first impressions of Hans sitting at the table in there when he was editing, you know, the insane number of photographs and videos he took was, as everybody has said, he was so easy to get along with and so kind and so on. But what prompted me was that recording. And the word honesty came to me. I don't think Hans could dissemble it all. I don't think he had it in his body not to be honest. And I stress that word because I started feeling about this crowd and all of you people. And, you know, there are billions of people in
But in this group here, I thought it's so magical because I don't know any of you, any of the acquaintances who has a dishonest bone in your body. It struck me that everyone here is a kind, gentle, loving soul. We're blessed to have those kinds of people. There are a lot of people hurting out there and aching who unfortunately don't have the goodness or the honesty blessed on them. But here we celebrate Hans, his parents, all of his loved ones, his good friends. Like O.C. said, everybody was his best friend. And I just want to share my own memory with Hans, and nobody else has mentioned Lander, his life, well, companion for a long time, soulmate, if you will. Hans, I'm going to miss you. Rolf, I like the passing over metaphor. And what Susan read, and it's pretty typical, is you don't mourn this guy. In fact, I hope you guys go up there and have a few beers and start telling some more stories. Because it's always hard to lose somebody. And it's easy to remember.
Do I push something here?
No,
Just hold it. I really wasn't going to speak because it's not something I do. But I wanted to speak to the multi-generation aspect of everything in Hans and us. I came into Hans's life when he was about 8, I think it was. I mean, I remember, carrying him around on my shoulders and we had a lot of adventures. And Rolf said that when he met me, he was sort of impressed that I was the only woman that he knew who had her own 4-man raft. And on our honeymoon, we went rafting in Utah and took Hans. And the rains were so heavy just before we went that we were supposed to be gone for 3 days. And we reached the takeout point in the afternoon of the first day. So we had to be flown back over, and I remember Hans finding some wild horses and riding them. And this sense of adventure he had, I think, came from all the trips that we took and the things we did. Sorry. But years later, we would go to Colorado and go skiing, and there was nothing like Hans's face when you pulled up to the car, to the house, to the cabin, and he would be just beaming, and Lander would come running out and literally just jump, because Lander was my favorite dog ever, and just jump off the porch, and we would often spend a month or 6 weeks at his cabin. And who does that? Think about it, I just wanted to leave you with that. He had so many connections that were so deep. I just wanted to leave you with that.
Hello everyone, I don't think I need this. My name's Chris Coates, and I know Hans through OC, and a lot of you guys, as you know, there's no way in hell I would come up here for this. I don't like guitars, I don't like music. So unfortunately it took Hans dying for me to come, so that's pretty powerful of him, to be honest. This isn't my thing at all. But I wanted to come because I wanted to tell a story about Hans that really meant a lot to me when he died. And I've had some people die in my life, and you think about the last thing you did or the last thing you said when somebody died. Unfortunately, I haven't had a fight with somebody right before they died or something like that, but it's been like, yeah, I said bye or I didn't say bye to somebody or something like that happened. But the last time I saw Hans is about as good a way as you could see somebody for the last time. And I'll give you a little bit of backstory. I turned 40 this year in February, and instead of like a regular person having a 40th birthday, I had a 40th birthday month. And it manifests itself in constantly skiing, constantly partying, seeing friends, traveling all over this general part of the country. And at the beginning of February, I went to Jackson Hole with 2 of my brothers and my cousin. And I think like a day before I was leaving, maybe 2 days before I was leaving, just happened to talk to OC. And OC says, yeah, no, I'm going to Jackson too with Hans and Fish. And Fish, most of you guys know. And so, of course, we're going to hook up because, you know, those guys are awesome and they're especially good at skiing. So we get up to Jackson. I'm there for a couple days. And the 3rd day we're there, we meet up with OC and Hans and Fish at the base of the mountain. And it's, was it a 15-inch blower? 15-inch blower day. Lifts aren't even open, snow everywhere. It's as happy as you can see Hans. I mean, and all of us, just giddy, just unbelievably giddy. And, you know, we ski a little bit in the morning just to get up on the mountain and stuff like that with the full confidence that Hans knows exactly what to do in the afternoon. And as we get to the afternoon, Hans just took us to parts of the mountains that I've been to, but I just didn't really realize were the place to go on that day. And just as good of snow, as good of skiing, as good of company, as good of anything you can have on a ski mountain. You should have seen us at the bottom of the runs, exhausted, soaking wet, as tired as you can be, and just Hans with that just spirit, just the happiest son of a bitch you've ever seen. I just like glowing the entire time, and he just had this spirit about him, as everybody talked about, and it was a really special thing to see skiing, and it's something that I think is very common with OC too, where, you know, he wasn't the most technical skier, but he certainly is one of the better skiers. Very cerebral, very enjoying of where he's at. If you ski into the trees with him and you're talking to him, he's like, look at where we're at, look at these trees, look at that run, look at that tree right there, look at that branch, you know, stuff like that. And it just was such, and I got to ski with him some in Winter Park as well, so it was such an honor. And so as that day that day ended, and it was just an unbelievable day, and we got back to the cabin at the end of the day, and it was my birthday month, so I proceeded to drink way too much, as I want to do. And I remember as I was going to bed for the evening, because I had to get up in the morning, just spending a little bit of time with Hans and just thanking him profusely for coming to Jackson, for being there the day that I was there, for taking me everywhere I wanted to go on the ski mountain that I wouldn't have gone otherwise, for making it just an unbelievable trip for me. And if you ski and you really are like dorky as some of us are, it's just one of those feelings that makes you as happy as anything. And I conveyed all of that to Hans, and in no uncertain terms, that he basically made my birthday. I couldn't have been happier for him being there. And I think that when he passed, I was thinking about that and how happy that made me, but I was also thinking about stories from OC and knowing Hans and stuff like that. Hans was in the right place at the right time for me that very day, for exactly what I needed to give me what the best thing could have been for that month of my birthday. And I think that that's a lot of what Hans did a lot of times. Wasn't premeditated. He didn't plan that. Had nothing to do with anything. He just converged at the exact right time, and it was exactly what I needed. And it's just one of those things that I was so happy with him that day. So happy. I mean, I will gush when it's time to gush, and I gush like nobody else. But it just made me so happy that he did that. And so his passing is as unfortunate as it is. I was heartfelt in that I had truly expressed my gratitude to somebody right before they had passed. And so that was a story I wanted to share. But there's one other thing I wanted to mention that I always thought was really interesting about Hans, and I've thought this about him for years, is that years ago we did some business together. I'm a mortgage broker, and I'd helped him with this house, and we did some financial planning and stuff like that, and all these things. And him and I talked for months. We talked after, and we made all these plans. And the thing that I realized about Hans, and I didn't know this until then, and I think most of you may know this, or a lot of you know this anyways, is that Hans is the smartest guy in the room. But you never would have known that. He was too humble. He just wasn't like that. But he was literally the smartest guy in the room. And
I can verify that.
it's crazy. I'm like the 9th smartest person in the room, and I act like I'm the smartest. So I really, really appreciate somebody like that who's just genuinely, fiercely intelligent and fiercely cerebral in the way that they did things. And he was just a force of nature. And I met him the first time too, when he wore that ridiculous costume. I saw him in the house, I'm just like, who is this clown? This is ridiculous. And then within 10 minutes you're talking to him and you're like, oh, I like this clown. And obviously he becomes a friend. So anyways, I had a deep, deep respect for Hans on a number of levels, not just intellectually, but also physically with all the stuff he did that's fun and stuff like that. And you know, it's to a life well lived. Like, he's just a great guy. So.
All right.
I know some people have some afternoon plans, and there's a water hole trip being talked about, so I think feel free to stay down here as long as you need and want. I know I'm going to stay down for a minute, but unless if anybody else needs to say anything, or Susan, you want to, any thoughts to wrap it up?
Let's go party. Let's have a beer.
I want to hear the song.
I know, I keep wanting to play.
We have a lot of musicians
Yeah,
here.
we'll
They
play.
can put it together.
Maybe they can help you out.
Podcast it later.
I sent this to
Try to get a hold of that song and play it at the
Yeah.
I'm Jim from Casper. I've got a song for Hans on behalf of all of you. I haven't played it for a long time, so there'll be a few screw-ups.
Wouldn't want a part of that.
It's starting to become a part of the place. I found it, and then once I did, I ran back up, and I can't remember, I must have grabbed Drew or somebody. I'm like, you gotta come see this. Because it doesn't look like anything. It just, and then, and then you get down there, and it just